They said it to my face like it was nothing. At the oak dining table, my father's voice carried more steel than comfort. You built the company, but your sister is the future. I nodded, silent, calm, but in my chest something twisted. I had seen this coming. The way their eyes lingered on her in board meetings. The subtle reshaping of her title. The way they asked me to guide her, as if I were already disposable. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I simply excused myself, went upstairs and mailed one envelope. A week later, their lawyers started calling. By then, it was already too late. I was 17 when I first stepped onto the factory floor. Concrete dust on my shoes, sweat on my back, and dreams in my veins. My sister, she was still sneaking out to parties, laughing at how I cared about balance sheets. I built it all, from supplier deals in back alleys to the first $1 million client who trusted my handshake. Every late night, every burned-out morning, it was me. And yet, my parents looked at her like she was a prize they could polish, a face they could frame in glossy magazines. They saw her charm. They ignored her absence. But me, I was the workhorse. And workhorses are only admired until they break. It began with small meetings. I wasn't invited. Decisions were signed without my initials. The accountant whispered that ownership structures were shifting. Then the truth bled out. They were transferring shares quietly, a slow erosion of everything I had poured my blood into. One evening, I found the final blow, a draft succession plan. My name wasn't even on it. They wanted me gone. But they underestimated me. That night, I stood by my window, watching city lights flicker like silent conspirators. For the first time in my life, I felt no need to prove myself to them. They had already written me off. And so I sharpened myself into something new. Not a son. Not a brother. A strategist. I collected documents, contracts, ownership records, emails carelessly forwarded. I traced the paper trail of their arrogance. And when I was ready, I prepared the envelope. Inside was not rage, it was precision. Proof of financial mismanagement. Conflict of interest. Tax irregularities hidden beneath my father's signature. I sent it to the only place that would listen, the government's corporate fraud division. The first call came from my mother. Her voice cracked thin with fear. Why would they? I cut the line before she could finish. A day later, my father stormed into my office, red-faced and trembling. You don't understand what you've done. But I did. The company's shares froze under investigation. Deals were halted. Partners grew nervous. Banks demanded clarity. For the first time, my father wasn't the man with answers. And my sister, her polished image began to fracture. Investors whispered about her competence. Lawyers demanded her signatures on documents she didn't even understand. The boardroom, once her stage, became her crucifixion. It happened in silence. Late evening. My father's study smelled of old leather and desperation. He looked older, smaller, his empire shrinking around him. You did this? His voice was a rasp. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I only leaned forward and whispered, You told me she was the future. Now she's the downfall. His hand trembled on the armrest. He wanted to strike me with words, but none came. He knew every decision, every betrayal. They had planted this harvest. I had simply chosen when to cut it down. My sister entered then, mascara smudged, her voice sharp with panic. They're pulling funding. They're saying we might lose everything. I looked at her. For years, she thought charm could replace grit. Now charm was ash on her tongue. I stood, straightened my jacket, and said the last words they'd ever hear from me as their son. You made your choice. I just mailed the bill. Within months, the company collapsed under investigation. Shares plummeted. Assets were seized. The once mighty empire reduced to dust. But I had prepared for that too. Long before mailing the envelope, I had set up my own venture, quietly siphoning loyal clients and staff who believed in me. Not the family name. While their empire burned, mine took root. People often ask if I regret it. If watching my family's name dragged through headlines, if seeing their eyes hollowed by defeat leaves me sleepless. The truth? I sleep better than ever, because betrayal demands payment. And justice, when executed with patience, tastes sweeter than love ever could. They said my sister was the future. And they were right. She was the future of their ruin.